time off social media. I've had friends who from time to time have said, who've just sort of done a goodbye from Facebook, just using that as an example, and said, that's it, you know, I'm off for a while. See you on the flip side kind of thing. Well, a woman from Rochester is one of a number of people who've officially told the BBC that her mental health has massively improved since she came off apps and programmes like Instagram and Snapchat. Kashmir said she now sleeps well, she's better at her job, and isn't making comparisons in her day-to-day life. The word she and others are using is liberating. Do you need Facebook or Twitter in your life? Or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok? And do the other people in your family need it? Do you think somebody's hooked on it? If you couldn't access it, how would it make you feel? Dr. Laura Higson-Bliss is a social media expert at the University of Kiel and joins us now. Laura, it's great to have you on the show. Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, real pleasure, real pleasure. Do we need social media? I mean, I've lived quite a lot of my 50 years without it, but it does feel as though it's quite central to a lot of our lives now. What do you think?
I think it is central to everyday life now. I understand that people do take time off, and I'm very open that I do occasionally take time off. You know, I research around this area, so I'm very much involved in it. But I do think there is a place for it. And I think if you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, particularly around COVID, social media was the main thing that was allowing people to connect with each other when we were literally told that we could not physically touch or see other people.
So that's a real force for good then, isn't it? At a time like that and for that purpose of pure connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there's been research by Ofcom looking at young people and their perceptions of social media. And despite the sort of negative press that social media tends to get, the majority of individuals involved in that research were very open that they found social media was actually a good thing for them, as it did allow them to make those connections.
But are young people who are using it quite a lot, and I speak as a parent of a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, two girls, and somebody who uses it a fair bit myself, are we ourselves objective in how good or bad for us social media actually is?
I think that's a difficult one to answer, and I think that sort of comes back to education and, you know, acknowledging that actually, you know, you could have a conversation with someone in the street and they could tell you that everything's absolutely fine, but you don't necessarily know what's going on behind closed doors. And that's exactly the same with social media, is that it is a perception, and it's a filtered perception of someone's life.
What about ages and who gets hooked in different ways to different things on social media? What can you tell us about that?
I think there is this issue around age. So most social media platforms are 13 and above. I know from my own experience that isn't necessarily how it plans out, and that there are probably younger people on social media platforms who shouldn't be there. I think it does tie in a bit to how these social media platforms are created. And for me, I think particularly if it's 13 to 18, you should have privacy by design. So TikTok, for example, if it's 13 to 18, it's automatically the most enhanced privacy settings that they can do. With regards to addiction, there is evidence on both sides, essentially, to say that some might say that it is addictive, others say that it's not, and it's still something that's debatable.
At what point does it become a problem for some people, do you think?
I think it becomes a problem if it's having a negative impact on your mental health. And I think that's where we all need to sort of take a step back and acknowledge where we are at that point in our life, and accept that sometimes it's okay to shut down your social media account or take a step back. And that's absolutely fine. And I think it's about normalising that a bit more.
Let's talk a little bit about what happens when you come off social media. It's an interesting feature on the BBC website today, which includes the comments of a woman from Rochester, who's one of a number of people who told the BBC that her mental health has massively improved since she came off programmes like Instagram and Snapchat. She described it as liberating. Mm-hmm. What do you make of that?
I think that's For me, I would argue that's a privilege. I think that depends where you are in your life. If you don't live close to family, or your family live on the other side of the world, for example, that might not be as liberating for that individual. I think it is down to personal preference, and taking a step back and thinking, well, what do I actually get from these social media platforms? Is it adversely affecting my mental health? Or is it allowing me to explore social connections? Is it allowing me, so for example, in my position, that my career has been advanced by social media, and I'm very much aware of that.
What about the... For me, as a mother of teenage girls, it feels to me as though some social media platforms and the algorithms they use to feed things, well, literally into your feed, the things you see, they strike me as being quite anti-feminist, being a lot about appearances, inconsequential matters like how perfect your eyebrow is or how to do the perfect eyeliner. And it makes me sad that my children's generation are being fed a diet of this on social media. What do you think?
Yeah, but I think you could have said that 10, 15 years ago with magazines, for example, and Photoshop.
Oh, yeah, but a magazine doesn't just, it doesn't keep appearing in your life, does it? You buy it or you don't buy it, and you look at it or don't look at it. But your social media feed is in your phone, which is a device that, for various reasons, you have with you at all times, and it's constantly updating with more and more and more of this. I don't buy the comparison with Just 17.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's a difficult one, and obviously we've got to remember is social media platforms are essentially businesses, and I think that's sometimes forgotten. They're there to make money, and privacy isn't necessarily at the forefront of that agenda. But I think, again, it just sort of comes back to having open conversations that, that isn't real, and that this is a perception that is making money for these platforms. And I think if you have those sort of open conversations, social media can be a force for good in certain circumstances.
Really interesting. Thank you, Laura. Lovely to talk it through with you. Dr. Laura Higson-Bliss, a social media expert at the University of Kiel. So whether it is for you or for somebody else in your life, in your family, is social media a force for good or ill? What do you think? And what conversations do you have about it? And have you ever taken a break from social media? Did it make you